antidepressant, happy plant.
We want rebel music, street music, music that breaks down people's fear of one another, music that knows who the real enemy is.
Our aim was to create a plant with a scent that makes its owner happy.
We are entering a new era here. The first mood-lifting, antidepressant, happy plant.
We've received orders from all over the world.
I just wanted to say that I feel really proud to be working with you.
Look what I have for you. What do you say we call him Little Joe? You have to take good care of it. Keep it warm. Talk to it. It needs attention. What's so special about it? It makes you happy.
Haven't you noticed how Chris has changed? I think Little Joe's pollen has triggered something. Little Joe changes the people he infects. You're starting to notice too, aren't you?
Fear can distort our perception of reality.
If I made a mistake, then it's my fault.
It seems that this has all been a bit much for you.
He frightens me.
You're a good mother. Which of your children will you choose?
Good night, Little Joe.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Film Talk session, the Q&A with the director of Little Joe, Miss Jessica Hausner here. Thank you so much for participating with us in this session tonight. And before we start with the Q&A and the Film Talk session, I would like to kindly remind the rules of the webinar tonight. So before we start, kindly keep in mind that this webinar session is being recorded and it is broadcasted live on the YouTube at the moment. And then all participants are muted in order to enable the speakers to speak without interruptions. We activate the Q&A box below where you can actually type your questions, and this question will be answered during the Q&A part of the webinar. And also, please kindly note it that the session will be conducted in English. I hope that is clear for everyone who attending the Q&A session Film Talk tonight with Miss Jessica Hausner. Thank you so much for participating for all the attendees, even though it's quite a bit late here, but I'm so happy that you can actually manage to attend this also Q&A. And Miss Jessica, we actually just screened your film 2 hours ago at 7 p.m. here. And to be honest with you, me and Naufal, my co-director, we both saw the film in Cannes last year, where you won the Best Actress for Emily Bisham. And that was actually one of my best pick, my first pick for the for the festivals this year. Congratulations for winning the prize on Cannes Film Festival. Yes, and maybe you can share in the very beginning. Maybe you can share the process of how you again collaborating with Geraldine in writing about the Little Joe. How the inspiration probably came.
So first of all, welcome everyone who is listening to this webinar. It's an honor for me that my film has been shown, and I'm happy to be able to give you some details about the way I work. So I have been working with Geraldine Bajard for Little Joe, but also for my 2 previous films. So we are quite an acquainted team. And normally we start on a new project with discussing certain ideas. It's basically a process of me collecting ideas and then presenting them to Geraldine in a way. And through discussion, we find out which is the topic or the storyline that interests us most. And I remember with Little Joe, it was really the idea to create a monster, an ambiguous monster, and to doubt, like to put this doubt into the head of the characters in the story, that they are not so sure anymore about if they really know the persons they used to know. So this was the basic idea, the doubt of the individual, the doubt of, can I really trust this other person?
Yes, that's actually quite resonate with this kind of uncertainty feelings, which give a kind of bit eerie and tension. Also, when you saw the movie, it was just for me. I think these films resonate well with the condition today that we are facing with the COVID-19, where we basically have lost trust towards people, especially with the situations. Do you feel like the kind of connections to this film that what we have in reality now?
Well, the connection I see is that we all, with COVID-19, we understand very strongly that we depend on science, we depend on the doctors, on medicine, on scientific research, and basically we have to believe what the scientists are telling us, and they have a very important job. They are really on the, like, what do you say, on the edge of decision making. So in my film Little Joe, the main character Alice, she has that burden. She carries the burden of being responsible for what she invents and what she finally releases into the whole world. And of course, this idea that science is sort of secretly ruling our lives is behind the story as well. It's a very strong influence that science has on all our lives.
Yes, that is true. And then I also watched your previous film, Lourdes, with Lea Seydoux, and I noticed that you always try to put the main character into a female figures with their strength. Is it something to do with your belief in feminism, or maybe you would like to? Because I think even from the from your first film, the one with the teenager, the Austrian teenager. Yes, this is also a female character. Maybe you can explain on the characteristic.
For me, that came very naturally. When I started to be a filmmaker, I didn't really reflect on feminism very much, and I just started to think about the stories I find interesting, and all those were stories with female main characters, and it was not 100% unconscious decision. I remember, for example, with the film Lovely Rita, it was, of course, that it's a young girl that commits a murder. And at that time, normally you were telling those stories only about men, especially if, if the murderer is a young person. Then you would always have a young man, an aggressive young or crazy young man who kills someone. And I was, being a female myself, I was just missing the other story. Where are the crazy women? Where are the crazy women, the aggressive young women that cannot hold themselves together, but they just express their aggression through a very brutal deed. So this was, of course, also a feminist motivation. And I would also say in Little Joe, I don't see the scientists in the films. Where are the female scientists? I mean, there are more and more, of course. Yeah, within the last 10 or 15 years, the situation in filmmaking has changed, and there are much more female characters that are not just the side of a man. They have their own life and they have their own personality. So I think in very tiny steps, filmmaking is changing.
Yes, and also particular scenes where Alice also talk with her string. That's also a little bit of, I can see that also there is all the characteristic in your film have this kind of issue to be addressed, but the heroine actually wants to address the issue by themselves. Like also in Lourdes, where the girl who is on the wheelchair trying to actually face her fear as well.
Yes. Yes, I do like to install scenes in my films where the main character really expresses her thoughts and her feelings, because this is funny enough. This is really how do you say that? It's not the usual way to engage an audience. Normally, you try to sort of make the audience feel with the character. And I think in my films, it's a slightly different emotional set. The character tells you what she feels, and as an audience, you think, what a strange person. So there is an intellectual gap between me as an audience and the character on the screen. This is something I like very much personally, because as an audience, it makes me question what I see. I suddenly think, why is she doing this now? And I prefer this attitude to an attitude where the audience is just overwhelmed with some emotions they just have to follow. That's too simple for my taste.
Ah, okay. And then also, when you wrote this story for Little Joe with Geraldine, this is also what you both have in mind, you're in mind too, with all these characteristics.
I have to admit that during writing the script, it is basically about finding a storyline that makes sense, that works well, if you want. The other thing that I mentioned earlier, that there's a gap between the character and the audience, this happens more during the shooting. This is something I develop with the actors, because if you want, there is a way of acting that makes it clear to the audience what the emotional state of a character is. Or another way of acting, which is more like pretending. And I believe in pretending. I think that in normal life, we don't give away our true thoughts and our true feelings. I think every one of us is wearing a mask because we have to present something. Now I'm playing the filmmaker, you're playing the interviewer. In another situation, I would have another mask. But would I ever tell you what I really think? No, probably not. I mean, even if it's nothing negative, but I would keep that truth to myself. And I think when I work with actors and actresses, we try to create this phony acting, this phony existence of every human being. You don't say what you really think. That creates also that sort of question mark. You think that's exactly what I mentioned before. That makes you think as an audience, is that the truth, or is this character lying to me?
Yes, yes. Actually, that's the beauty of filmmaking. I think we can create something that probably in reality we couldn't, we barely can express.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also I noticed that the mood in the film is built to be like a kind of exotic with the sound of flute, the oriental kind of ambience. Is that also to emphasize on the strange or the eeriness of the plan itself? Because being a new plan, Little Joe is something that's quite mesmerizing, or
yeah,
how does it go usually?
I found the music when I developed the script. It's composed by a Japanese composer. His name is Teiji Ito, and I know this composer because he worked for an American independent filmmaker called Maya Deren. And Maya Deren made experimental films in New York in the 1940s, and Teiji Ito composed music for her films. And I love this music, and so I did a little research. What else did he compose? And I found this music. It was composed, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. And I had the feeling it expresses, like you said, a certain eeriness. It has a strangeness to it, but it has also a beauty. And it is also a bit thrilling. It's also creates a suspense. It's also sometimes a threatening. There's a threat in the music, and so I thought that those elements are ideal for my film Little Joe, because those elements sort of fight against each other. It's a thriller, but it's also a very strange European art house film. And it's also an emotional film because it's about a mother who is afraid to lose her son.
Yes. And how does it went with the Austrian release or European release?
I think it went well. I was happy that it could happen last year. I think there was only 1 or 2 releases that had to be cancelled because of Corona, because of COVID. I think it was the Spanish release that was supposed to happen in May, and it had to go online. But all the other releases could take place. I think the release in China was also postponed. But US and Europe and South America, that went all before COVID-19. And some of the releases I joined. So I was present at the release in France and the US and some others, but as far as I know, it all went well, and the echo was interesting. I had interesting interviews and Q&As. Yeah.
Okay. Let's now answer some questions from the audience that have watched your film previously. There's actually from Ariana Sarah. Thank you so much for EoS to bring this film to Jakarta, Indonesia. This is my first experience watching European film with Japanese traditional music as its background. My question for Jessica are, surprisingly, the Japanese traditional music give more tension. I think we have already answered that one. Are you a fan of Akira Kurosawa too? And is this the first time you use the Asian sound to your movie? And then also she was asking about feminism in this film. Do you have any specific purpose about highlighting this issue with a workaholic woman who chooses her career over her child?
Yeah. So yes, I like the director Akira Kurosawa very much. It's interesting that she asks about him because he was nearly forgotten now. And when, yeah, nobody talks about him anymore. And when I was a teenager, his films, also I think there were 3 directors that inspired me. That was Akira Kurosawa, Ingmar Bergman, and Luis Buñuel. And those 3 directors, and my father was a visual artist, so he was a painter. And Akira Kurosawa also was a visual artist before he became a filmmaker. So my father loved his films, and that's how I saw those films too, at the age of 15 or 16. And I was very impressed and also inspired. I liked it a lot. And I did not use Asian music on any of my previous films. That was the first time, but I think it will not be the last time. I found this a very interesting experience for myself. And the last question was about the female issue about working moms, right?
Yes.
Yes, this is also a very personal statement from me, because in my film Little Joe, in the end, there is a certain irony in it that the working mother chooses her work over her child, and it's supposed to put a mirror in front of our traditional beliefs, because I think without knowing it, we all still think a mother should choose her child over her work.
Yeah.
It's a sort of subconscious note that we carry around with us. And becoming a mother, so I became a mother 10 years ago, and I suddenly was confronted with those secret images about how a mother should behave or should be. And I was really astonished. I thought, wow, it's very alive. This very old image of how a mother should be. And I always thought I see myself as a father, because a father is allowed to love his child and also love his work. So I immediately decided, okay, I'm a father, because that idea of a mother giving up everything because she has a child, I didn't understand why I should do this. And so this, in the film, this is of course the irony in the end, that the woman, that Alice actually behaves like the father. She's going to be a scientist, and her husband and the father of the boy is taking care of the boy.
Yes, that's what I call women empowerment, that women can actually do both functions.
Yes.
So yes, and then we will go to the next questions from Zico Hosea Siahaan. He said that I really love the movie. I want to ask, how long have you have made this movie, and what was the most difficult part making this film?
So Little Joe took quite a while to make the film, because the most difficult part was actually the script writing. It took, I don't know, 3 years or something like that, or maybe two and a half years to really settle on the right storyline. I knew somehow what the film should be about, and I even knew it's a scientist and she creates something. But until I was really sure that it's a flower that has been created and that the smell is seducing people. So the preciseness of the storyline, it took quite a while, because I had to do some research. I wanted to know what is going on in the scientific world. And then I wanted to find the story that is still very simple. I didn't want to say, okay, yeah, that's CRISPR-Cas9 because it's a genetic tool that has been invented a short time ago. I wanted to make the story more universal. So I had to do the research, then I had to forget it all again, and then I had to create a sort of simple fairy tale story. And also the ambiguity of the storytelling, that every scene can be interpreted in the one way or in the other. Yes, there is a virus changing people, or no, they just imagine things and nobody has been changed. So every story had to be readable in both interpretations. That was also quite difficult to find those scenes, yeah.
That will be the most difficult part, I think. But I think what you have answered before has relation with the next question, because Imelda Rahma was asking at some point, is a little Joe using a metaphor for mental illness? Because at some point it really make me question about the reality of the presence of the plant itself.
Yes, that's a very nice comment. Thank you. I find that sometimes people like to read the film from the psycho-thriller side. And you can do that, it's fine. But I'm also happy if someone sees the other side, which is the story about craziness. Absolutely. It's a story about who knows what is really reality, and who are the ones who are telling some crazy imagination. It's sometimes, and in this story, it's hard to tear the line. It's hard to say, yes, this character is right and that character is wrong. And I liked very much to play around with this. I think it's also a very modern topic, those conspiracy theories. Also, I think nowadays a lot of people believe in some ideology because they read it on the internet or something. So the truth is becoming wobbly in a way, because there are so many truths coexisting and everyone claims to have proof. And you cannot prove it all. I think I even heard there are websites that claim they can prove conspiracy theories. I want I mean, do they have spies in every living room? That's even more ridiculous than the conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I heard about that website too. I just wondered how that works actually.
They implanted something in our brain, or I don't know.
I do hope not. So yes, the next question is actually from Nathan Tanugroho. The questions are: what horror movie reference that you use to create the concept of Little Joe Pollen that can make someone feeling joyous? And the second one, in this film, the main character is a smart, busy woman. Is this about the workaholic culture in our society that put jobs above family? I think the number second, I think we have already answered that one, right?
I mean, the second question, it's also true. It's just the other perspective. You can also say, yes, oh, the poor woman has to work and she cannot play Lego with her boy. You can also say, okay, lucky her, she can invent a new plant. And yeah, so, but that's the second question. The first question was the horror film element. Actually, there is one horror novel that was also part of my inspiration, which is The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is a story about... Sorry?
Yes, I read that novel actually with the plant, with the huge plant, yeah, with the body snatchers plant, yes.
Yes, and it's also it's not like in that story the pollen is not inhaled, but the pollen, there is a seed pot that breeds a clone of the characters in the story, so they are replaced, and their close relatives feel the difference, but they cannot really prove it. So it's also here the basic idea: who is lying and who is saying the truth, and who is crazy and who is sane. Who is that other person that I thought I know well, and suddenly it's not that person anymore. Actually, there is a psychological disease existing. It's called the Capgras syndrome.
And the Capgras.
Yes, and this is if you think that your boyfriend, your son, your father, whoever has been kidnapped and exchanged, and it's an imposter, and it's not your real father anymore, it's an imposter. This is a psychological disease that really exists, and it's called Capgras syndrome.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you believe something that is really not happening.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yes. I think you should make a new film about that too. Okay. And the next question is from Fanny C. Hi, I really like this movie. Plant house is being there. Is it for real, or is just the plan itself, or is just built for the movie?
The plant was, so I have to say both. It was real and built for the movie. It's a plant. It's not living. It's out of plastic. But as a plastic plant, it was real. So it was not digital. It was not digitally made into the film, but it was really an object that was there. And it was especially made for the film. Yes. And it was actually quite complicated process because we had to create very many plants. I think we had 4 or 5 different stages of growth: the small plant, the medium, the big plant, and the fully open plant.
Yeah.
And each state had to have 1,000 plants. So it was an enormous act to make those plants. So there were several people working for months to build all those plants.
Yes, I can imagine your art props team would be having so much fun.
They had a lot of fun and they were really proud of the film. You can imagine that because it's actually quite an unusual thing.
Yes, and also the plant looks very real. I was actually thinking that it was a real plant.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next question is from Maharani Nurul. She was asking about any obstacles during the making of the movie. You have answered the difficult part, but probably what she was asking now is more into the production, or maybe when you direct the actors and the actresses.
I think with working with the actors and actresses went really well. I was very lucky because I have a way of shooting that can be exhausting and annoying because it's long shots, and a lot of actors are used to just remember 1 or 2 phrases because normally the scenes are intercut so often that they don't have to perform a whole scene in one. So I had long scenes in one shot with a lot of dialogue. This was, some of the actors and actresses were not happy with that because they were not used to it. But I have to say, mostly it went really well because Ben Whishaw, as well as Emily Beecham, as well as Carrie Fox, they're, of course, professionals and they can change their way of working. And so they very generously adapted to how I like to direct. And it was really a pleasure. It went well, and they followed the whole idea of the film with a great enthusiasm. So it was really fun. So there were no obstacles there. I think the obstacles were mostly on the practical side because we had some bad luck with some locations. But I mean, this is something you can never foresee. We had 2 or 3 locations that suddenly canceled the shooting. They didn't want to have us anymore, so we had to very quickly find other places to shoot. So that was stressful, unnecessarily stressful. Yeah.
Yes, I can feel that. Yes. In relation to that, were both Emily Beecham and then Ben Whishaw your first choices to be the leads in this film?
More or less. I think Ben Whishaw came on board quite early. So definitely among the first actors and actresses that I approached. And Emily Beecham came on board a little later. This was also because we were postponing the shooting once or twice, also because of some other schedule and location problems. And so it's never really sort of totally smooth. If you prepare a film, there's always some back and forth. But definitely I would say that Emily Beecham and Ben Whishaw and Carrie Fox were definitely among my favorites actors and actresses to ever work with. So that was very happy or lucky for me.
Okay, yes. And then also for the next question is from Abdul Latif. He knows that this is not your first of horror film, and his question is, are you a big fan of the genre? And would you keep making a horror or film in the future to representing Austrian horror cinema to get to know more internationally?
I wouldn't say that my films is Austrian horror cinema. I think my films are not typical Austrian. I have to disappoint this, this person, but I would say that some of my films have that horror genre element. I think the person who wrote this question is referring to a film called Hotel I made a couple of years ago. And I do think that also in future I will keep having this genre crossover films with horror genre, because yes, I am a fan of horror films. I really love them. Sometimes I'm too afraid to go to sleep because I'm easily frightened. And I have the habit to watch the films not in darkness. So if I watch a terrible horror film, like I watched Hereditary the other day, and I had to watch it in the morning in daylight, because then I have still the whole day to try to get over it. But still I couldn't sleep very well at night. But what I love about horror films is exactly that. I think I correspond or very much to feelings of fear, because what interests me is that fear, that we always try to neglect our fears, and then they come out in some other way. And I think, at least in Western society, the biggest fear we neglect is the fear of death. So we all think we will live forever. Nobody talks about dying, illness, decay, death. This is sort of invisibly moved out of the frame. And we think we're going to be young and live forever. And this is a big misunderstanding. I think we should really include that fear about not knowing what happens to us after death. I think for me, it's always better to name the fear and look into the face of it than to be surprised in the end.
Yes.
That I will not go to heaven.
Yes, this is quite interesting actually. As we are in Indonesia, horror genre is pretty much the one that always make it to the box office in the films, in the film industry, and that here we are raised to believe in the ghost story and also to embrace the fears itself. So I'm also a big fan of horror film, but like you, I wouldn't watch them in the darkness too, because it gives me hard time to sleep.
That's what you say about Indonesia. I also heard about the ghost stories.
Yes.
I think also in other cultures, like I think in China, you also have a tradition of ghost story films. Yes. And also in Thailand. Or?
True. Yes.
I really love that, because it's exactly what you say. It's about embracing the unknown or the transcendental or whatever you want to call it, and to include it into your everyday life. For me, that I love it too. So I also love ghost stories. Yes.
Yes. Okay. And then our last question is the thing that got my attention is the trailer. There's a part where you show the plant laboratory and you put a dog's bark sound. Is there any meaning behind this?
The dog bark sound is part of that music that I chose. So this Japanese composer Teiji Ito, his music was not only the flute and the melody, but he created a whole sound symphony. So
like experimenting.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So in his, it's not only that melody in his sound concept, there was also that bark of the dog and also the aeroplane. I don't know if you heard that. At some point,
Yes.
there is an aeroplane in the sound. You don't see it because we're inside a living room. It's also on the soundtrack of Teiji Ito. And I thought, yeah, we could try and erase it. But since the music is so strange anyway, I thought, better keep it on.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Do we still have one more? Okay, we have one more, and I think we still have time to answer this one very last questions. Do you think the film would make the same impact if it's being made in the German language?
That's a good question. That's really hard to say. I mean, I made one film in French language, which was
with Lourdes, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember back then it was also the reason because we thought the French market is the biggest European market for art house film. So it was also a financial idea, but it was also artistically okay because the film took place in the south of France. So it was
in Lourdes, yeah.
To say, yes, okay, we shoot it in French. And maybe it was a little bit the same with Little Joe. I thought it goes well with a sort of genre film to shoot it in English language because the novel Invasion of the Body Snatcher and the whole genre of horror films, you have a lot of English speaking films in that genre. Definitely more than German speaking. So I thought when the film is German, it's more specifically German, whereas when it's English, then it's a horror film. You know what I mean? It's more, the English language is not, it doesn't say, oh, that's in Liverpool Road, that's this and that. It's just the film land, you know? Yes. Whereas if I shoot it in German, then it's a German film. And I thought it's not the right way. It's better to have it universal.
Yes, I think also it would reduce the eeriness if it's like say it in the German language. So yes, Jessica, thank you so much for this session. It has been such a great talk with you, and it's good to know all the stories behind Little Joe. And right now, we would like to take a photo with you. Maybe Neta, the host, can actually cue us on how to do.
Hi, so please look at the camera.
Can I just also say thank you to the
please
to the people who wrote the questions. Just wanted to say thank you for your interest, and also to you, thank you for asking the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. So yes, Neta, please, sorry.
So please stay still for 1 to 2 seconds to avoid any delay. I will count to 3 and you can stay still for 1 to 2 seconds. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Neta. Thank you so much, Jessica. Good luck with your next project.
Thank you.
Do you have something cooking at the moment?
Yes. I'm sitting here in my office and writing. It's all in preparation.
Are you still in lockdown though in Austria?
Yes, yes.
Ah, okay. Wishing you the best of luck with your next project. I can hardly wait to watch it. And also, I hope that you stay safe. And we will let you know on the progress of the films that we screen here with your film Little Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye bye.